I'm Beverly. I stand outside the Onondaga County Probate Court, the echoes of the judge's final ruling still ringing in my ears. My father, Victor, sits in his car, the engine growling impatiently. His attorney closes the briefcase with a sharp click, a sound that feels like the end of a long, painful chapter. It all started 3 weeks ago at my college graduation. I was walking across the stage, the sun streaming through the high windows, my heart full of pride and hope. And then, out of nowhere, there he was, Victor, my father who had abandoned me when I was 16. He walked onto the stage arm in arm with a 17-year-old girl I'd never seen before, a girl wearing a bright pink t-shirt that said "Proud Big Sister." In front of my entire class, professors, and all the families, he smiled proudly and announced, "This is my real daughter, the one I'm actually proud of." My mother, Lily, who had been sitting in the third row, stood up and ran out sobbing before they could even call my name. That night, she texted me, "If he gives you the envelope, do not open it in front of her. She can't see the date." I'd always been a naive fool. For the past 4 years, I'd thought that the tuition, the car, and all the money he'd given me meant he was finally making amends. But every single cent was a carefully laid trap. My father, Victor, was a smooth-talking man. He had a way with words that could charm anyone. But I now know that beneath that charming exterior, there was a cold, calculating man. He left our family when I was 16. One day, he was sitting at our kitchen table, eating Lily's delicious lasagna, and the next, his closet was empty, and his car was gone. He didn't call on my birthdays, Christmas, or when I broke my ankle during a soccer game. Lily had to drive me to the ER at 3 o'clock in the morning all by herself. My grandfather, Henry, was the light in my life. He owned a chain of small bookstores in the city. He built them from the ground up, with hard work and dedication. By the time he retired, they were worth a fortune. He was the only one in my father's family who ever made me feel like I mattered. He used to sit me on the counter of his main bookstore and let me count the books. "Bev," he'd say, "you've got a head for numbers. That's a precious gift." That's why I decided to major in accounting. 3 months after Henry's funeral, Victor called me directly. His voice was different, softer and slower, like he'd rehearsed what he was going to say. He said he'd been doing a lot of thinking since his dad passed and wanted to make things right. I was 18 then, about to start college with no savings, and Lily's salary as a librarian wasn't enough to cover much more than the rent. So, when he offered to pay my tuition at Columbia University, I said yes. He didn't stop at tuition. He bought me a used Toyota Camry, a reliable car that I was so grateful for at the time. He co-signed my apartment lease when I moved off campus junior year and paid the first 3 months' rent. He sent me grocery money regularly, making me believe that he had truly changed. I graduated with a 3.9 GPA, a Bachelor of Science in Accounting from Columbia. On that fateful graduation day, as I saw Victor walking towards me with that girl, I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. The girl, named Ava, looked nervous, like she was in on something but wasn't sure how it would play out. Victor reached into his jacket and pulled out a thick manila envelope. "Your grandfather wanted you to have this," he said. "I've been holding on to it for the right time." The right time? My graduation, the one day that was supposed to be mine. I took the envelope but didn't open it. Something inside me, that accountant's instinct, told me not to open a document without context. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily, "Don't open it in front of her. She can't see the date." I drove home in silence, the envelope sitting on the passenger seat like a ticking time bomb. The next morning, I started to dig into the numbers. I pulled out all my bank statements from the past 4 years, printed them out, and started highlighting every payment made by Victor. Every tuition payment was made directly from his account to the university. The car title was in his name, and the apartment lease had his name as a co-signer. It was all a carefully crafted paper trail to prove that I was financially dependent on him. I also found an old Instagram post of Ava and Victor at a fancy restaurant from 2 years ago. The caption said, "Dinner with Dad. Big things are coming." That was the same year he started paying my junior year tuition and put his name on my lease. I drove to Lily's house the next day. She was standing at the kitchen sink, scrubbing dishes that were already clean. I knew she was nervous. "You knew about the envelope before he gave it to me," I said. She turned off the water, dried her hands slowly, and then said, "It's not what you think." I pressed her for answers, and she finally told me that Henry had left some things, and Victor had handled the estate. She was using vague words, trying to avoid the truth. I could tell she was hiding something. I picked up the envelope and said, "I'm opening this tonight, with or without your explanation." Back at my apartment, I opened the envelope. Inside was Henry's will. I read it carefully, and my heart sank. My name was in a clause about asset distribution, but there was a condition. I would only receive the designated portion if I was not living under the direct or indirect financial support of Victor. And on paper, every document said I was completely dependent on him. I called the attorney named on the will, Mr. Thompson. He told me that Henry had added an addendum 2 years before he died. Henry had said, "My son will find a way to make her dependent. Don't let him, Thompson." The addendum specified that proof of financial dependence must be independently initiated by the beneficiary, not engineered by a parent. But then, Mr. Thompson dropped a bombshell. Victor had filed a petition in probate court 2 weeks ago, claiming that I'd been financially dependent on him since I was 18. He attached all the bank records, tuition receipts, the car title, and the lease. The hearing was in 3 weeks. Aunt Stella, Victor's older sister who owned a flower shop, called me. She said, "Honey, I heard about graduation. Family is family. Your grandfather loved all of us equally. He wouldn't want us fighting." I almost laughed. I'd just read the will, and I knew Henry had loved me precisely, with paperwork and legal clauses to protect me from Victor. I met Ava at a coffee shop in the city. She was wearing an oversized hoodie, looking small and scared. I asked her if Victor had told her to wear that shirt, and she nodded slowly. She told me that Victor had promised to help her with rent and give her part of Grandpa's money if she showed up at my graduation. He'd also told her to lie and say I lived with them sometimes. I showed her the date on the will. "You're 17, I said. You weren't born when this was signed. You were never in the will." She stared at the date, and then whispered, "He lied to me." I knew we had a chance to fight this. Ava agreed to testify. But 2 days before the hearing, she called me in a panic. "Dad came to my apartment. He knows I talked to you. He left a fake photo of us at Thanksgiving and told me to submit it as evidence that you lived with us." I told her to take a photo of the photo and bring it to the hearing. I also found an old email from Victor to the university's bursar's office, asking them to record all tuition payments under his name for personal financial documentation purposes. The day of the hearing finally arrived. I wore a professional suit, ready to present the numbers and the truth. In the courtroom, Victor's attorney presented his case, saying that Victor had provided consistent financial support for 4 years, resulting in my financial dependence. Douglas, my attorney, stood up and calmly presented our case. He showed the bank statements, highlighting that I had never requested or authorized any of the payments. He presented the timeline, showing that Victor had no contact with me from age 16 to 18 and only reappeared 3 months after Henry's death when the will entered probate. Then Ava took the stand. She told the court about Victor's lies, about the shirt, the false stories, and the fake photo. The judge looked at the fabricated photo and then at Victor. Victor stood up, his face red with anger. "That money was supposed to be mine," he shouted. I stood up and said, "Your Honor, my father didn't come back into my life because he missed me. He came back because my grandfather died and left me something he wanted. Every tuition check was a chain, every car payment was a leash. He invested in making me look dependent to take what my grandfather built to protect me. The judge read the addendum again, looked at all the evidence, and then ruled. The court finds sufficient evidence that Mr. Victor's financial support was not initiated by the beneficiary and was strategically engineered to circumvent the independence clause. The addendum's anti-manipulation provision is upheld. The petition is denied. Ms. Beverly will receive the designated portion under the terms specified by Henry. As I stand outside the courthouse now, I look at the car Victor bought me. I take the key off my ring and place it on the roof. I'm not keeping anything with his name on it. I'm ready to start a new chapter, free from his control. 2 weeks later, I start my new job at a small accounting firm in the city. My new apartment is on a quiet street, and the lease is in my name. My new car, a 10-year-old Hyundai Elantra, has my name on the title. I bought it with my own savings. Ava texts me a month after the hearing. I got in, she says, along with an emoji. She's enrolled in a community college, studying early childhood education. I transfer her first semester tuition from the account where Henry's estate is deposited. I attach a note, Grandpa Henry didn't know about you, but I know he would have wanted this. She replies, thank you, big sister. No glitter, no costume, just a girl calling another girl by a name that finally means something true. I close my laptop and look out the window. The sun is shining on my car, and I know that I've finally become free.